wait a minute. Will you I'm
Get in.
trying to understand what you're saying to me.
Go on in.
It came out in 1975, right in the middle of the most paranoid decade in American film history, and it fit the moment perfectly. But even people who have seen it multiple times have been missing things. Here are 30 small details you missed in 3 days of the Condor, 1975.
Intelligence network undetected by CIA, linking certain Arabic-speaking countries with Dutch and Spanish-speaking. We're already visible.
Detail 30. The source novel was called something else. The film is based on a 1974 novel by James Grady, but the book was not called 3 Days of the Condor. It was called 6 Days of the Condor, and that timeline was cut in half for the movie. The novel is set primarily in Washington, D.C., not New York City, and the central conspiracy involves a drug smuggling operation, not a rogue CIA plan to seize Middle Eastern oil fields. The screenplay, credited to Lorenzo Semple Jr. and David Rayfield, changed the city, revised the plot, updated the political subtext, and compressed the timeline. Grady had worked as a Senate aide in Washington before writing the book, and his first-hand familiarity with Capitol Hill gave the novel its texture. The screenplay borrowed the premise and mood, but built something substantially different from the ground up.
Well, we've got so far. Is it
Ice.
38?
Instead of what?
Detail 29. Warren Beatty was almost the Condor. Before Robert Redford was attached to the project, the role of Joe Turner belonged to Warren Beatty. Producer Dino De Laurentiis had built the film around Beatty and had hired director Peter Yates, best known at the time for Bullitt, 1968, to helm it. When Redford entered the picture, he had a condition. He wanted Sidney Pollack as director, not Yates. Redford and Pollack had already worked together on Jeremiah Johnson, 1972, and The Way We Were, 1973, and the professional trust between them was already established. De Laurentiis agreed to the swap, paid Yates his full $200,000 salary as a penalty for removing him from the project, and brought Pollack in. Redford and Yates, despite having worked together on The Hot Rock in 1972, did not collaborate again after this.
What are you doing? It's him! It's him! Joe!
Detail 28. Pollack and Redford made 7 films together. The partnership between Sidney Pollack and Robert Redford is one of the defining director-star relationships of 1970s. American cinema and 3 Days of the Condor was part of a body of work that spanned 7 films over more than 2 decades. Their collaborations included This Property is Condemned, 1966, Jeremiah Johnson, 1972, The Way We Were, 1973, 3 Days of the Condor, 1975, The Electric Horseman, 1979, Out of Africa, 1985, and Havana, 1990. Across that run, Pollack earned an Academy Award for Best Director for Out of Africa. The creative shorthand between them, built from years of working together, was part of what Redford was protecting when he insisted on Pollack over Yates. Detail 27. Sidney Pollack appears twice in the film. Sidney Pollack did not just direct 3 Days of the Condor. He also appears in it twice in small roles. His voice is heard as the boyfriend of Kathy Hale, Faye Dunaway's character, during a telephone conversation early in the film. He also appears on screen briefly as a cab driver who shouts at Redford for not watching where he is going while crossing the street. Pollack has described the cab driver role as an impulse decision made on the day. He was on location during a street scene in Brooklyn Heights. The cameras were rolling, and he stepped in. neither appearance is credited in the film.
By age? Her car? Appearance?
Detail 26. The ending was changed after a lunch with a journalist. The film's final scene, in which Turner tells Higgins he has given his story to the New York Times, was not in the original screenplay. In the earlier ending, Higgins simply tells Turner that no one will believe him. Redford found that ending flat and pushed for something more genuinely ambiguous. The change came after he lunched with journalist Seymour Hersh, who had recently broken major stories about illegal CIA surveillance operations in the New York Times. After that conversation, Redford pushed Pollack to sharpen the ending's uncertainty. The question of whether Turner's story will actually be published, left unanswered, became more unsettling than any clean dismissal. It is arguably the most remembered moment in the film.
For Christ's sake, what the hell you doing, Mac? Go you sleeping at night, will ya?
Detail 25. The film was shot in autumn while set in winter. The story of 3 Days of the Condor takes place in winter, and the gray, cold atmosphere of the finished film strongly suggests that season. In reality, principal photography took place in autumn. The production shot on location across New York City, the Upper East Side, Upper West Side, Central Park, Chelsea, Brooklyn Heights, and Ward's Island, during fall months before winter had arrived. The seasonal mismatch was handled through costume and cinematography. Roisman used New York's autumn light to suggest winter cold convincingly enough that most viewers never notice they are watching a different season.
I'm telling you. I'll call you. And stay there. I'll call you. Do what I'm telling you, please.
Detail 24. Owen Roisman. Shot 3. Landmark 1970s. Films back-to-back. The cinematography of 3 Days of the Condor, its gritty New York textures, rain-slicked streets, and sense that the city itself is a trap, was the work of Owen Roisman. He was also the director of photography on The French Connection, 1971, The Exorcist, 1973, The Taking of Pelham, 123, 1974, and Network, 1976, surrounding this film on either side. These were not minor pictures. Together, they represent some of the most visually distinctive work of the decade. Roisman brought to Condor the same quality he demonstrated throughout, an instinct for making familiar urban spaces feel threatening and alive.
Cute little leather pouch, automatic gun.
Never used mailman.
Would you also happen to be familiar with a very tall gentleman, about 6'4", blonde hair?
Detail 23. The screenplay won the Edgar Award. The screenplay, adapted by Lorenzo Semple Jr. and David Rayfield, won the Edgar Award for Best Motion Picture Screenplay from the Mystery Writers of America in 1976. Named after Edgar Allan Poe, the Edgars are the premier recognition in mystery and crime writing. For a Hollywood screenplay to win, there was significant recognition from the literary community. The script has since been used as a teaching text in university film courses in the United States, cited as a prime example of how to structure an effective conspiracy thriller, how to parcel out information, build character pressure, and land an ending that leaves the audience genuinely uncertain about what follows. Detail 22. The CIA front was a real Beaux Arts building. The American Literary Historical Society in the film, the CIA front office where Turner works, was not a studio set. The location used was an actual building at 55 East 77th Street at Madison Avenue on New York's Upper East Side, a Beaux Arts townhouse built in 1902, used with minimal alteration. The building's ornate facade and its location in a prosperous residential neighborhood suited the film's idea of a covert operation hiding in plain sight behind a respectable institutional identity. The contrast between the elegant exterior and what happens inside it is part of the film's visual argument about how deception works in institutional settings.
Van Gogh was 30 before he started to paint.
No kidding.
There's no mayonnaise on Dr. Lab.
Detail 21. Turner's Lunch Run was filmed at a real diner that still exists. The lunch counter where Turner goes to pick up sandwiches for his co-workers, the errand that saves his life, was filmed at the Lexington Candy Shop Luncheonette at 1226 Lexington Avenue on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. The diner, opened in 1925, was still there decades after the film, still looking almost exactly as it does on screen. It is the kind of New York detail that gives the film its specific sense of place. An unremarkable neighborhood lunch counter, serving as the innocent fulcrum around which an entire massacre turns.
15:30, I want you to enter that alley from the 73rd Street side.
Will you be there?
Detail 20. Former CIA Director Richard Helms was Redford's personal consultant. For his portrayal of Joe Turner, a CIA research analyst rather than a field operative, Robert Redford sought authenticity at the highest level. Former CIA Director Richard Helms served as a personal consultant during production, advising on the internal culture and sensibility of someone working within the agency's analytical ranks. Helms had led the CIA from 1966 to 1973 through some of the most turbulent years in its history. Having him available as a resource gave Redford's portrayal a credibility that went beyond what the script alone could provide.
If you move it, you'll find the Alsatian gentleman we spoke of.
Where are you, Condor? Where are you?
Detail 19. Pollock was filming while real. CIA scandals were breaking in the press. One of the more remarkable contextual details surrounding the production is the timing. While Sidney Pollock was shooting 3 days of the Condor on location in New York, a series of major real-world disclosures about illegal CIA operations was appearing in the American press. Revelations about domestic surveillance programs and alleged assassination plots. The Church Committee hearings in the U.S. Senate were beginning to expose exactly the kind of institutional wrongdoing the film was dramatizing. Pollock later said that when production started, the film was reacting to Watergate in a general way. By the time it was in post-production, the headlines had caught up with the fiction in ways no one had anticipated. The film felt current, not because it predicted anything, but because reality had arrived to confirm what it was suggesting.
What's going on, Major?
Son of a bitch wired together 50 phones.
What?
Everybody in Brooklyn's talking to each other.
Detail 18. The CIA's Higgins had his office in the World Trade Center. The office of CIA Deputy Director Higgins, played by Cliff Robertson, is located in the World Trade Center, specifically in One World Trade Center, the North Tower, with a view down the Manhattan skyline toward the Empire State Building. 3 Days of the Condor is one of the very few films, possibly the only one, to have actually filmed interior scenes inside the Twin Towers before their destruction on September 11, 2001. The towers appear on the skylines of many films from the era, but shooting inside them was rare. The detail acquired an unexpected dimension in later years, particularly when it emerged after 2001 that the 25th floor of one of the towers had actually housed a CIA office during the period the film was made.
Here.
Here.
It's only fair.
Detail 17. Pollock played himself to scare Faye Dunaway into a real reaction. When filming a scene involving Faye Dunaway's character being held at Turner's mercy, Redford temporarily left the set. Pollock took over his position to provide reaction cues for Dunaway's close-up shots. What happened next was not scripted. Pollock lunged toward Dunaway, who was tied up and unable to move, and began detailing in vivid terms exactly what his character was going to do to hers, eyes locked on hers with the camera still rolling. Dunaway wrote about it in her memoir, Looking for Gatsby, noting that Pollock has an inventive mind and that he genuinely scared her. The fear visible during that sequence was not an acting performance. Detail 16. The film was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Film Editing. 3 Days of the Condor received a single Academy Award nomination for Best Film Editing at the 48th Academy Awards in 1976. The film was edited by Frederick Steinkamp and Don Giudice. The nomination speaks to the film's most essential technical achievement, maintaining tension across long stretches of dialogue and city movement, without the action set pieces that typically drive thrillers of this type. The editing keeps the film from ever feeling slow despite its measured pace, sustaining the sense that something terrible could happen at any moment.
Don't turn for a moment. Put your thumb in front of the hammer.
Detail 15. Max von Sydow was coming off years of work with Ingmar Bergman. Before playing Joubert, the film's quietly terrifying freelance assassin, Max von Sydow had spent years making films for Swedish director Ingmar Bergman, some of the most formally demanding cinema of the post-war era. He had appeared in The Seventh Seal, 1957, Wild Strawberries, 1957, and The Virgin Spring, 1960, working for scale rates in Swedish productions that bore no resemblance to Hollywood pay. By the time he crossed into American commercial cinema, most visibly in The Exorcist in 1973, he brought to every role a quality of absolute conviction that was unusual in genre filmmaking. In Condor, Joubert is polite, methodical, and without apparent remorse. Von Sydow plays him without any attempt at conventional menace, which is exactly what makes him frightening.
He called in sick, Dr. Lapp.
He's probably hungover again.
This is extraordinary. I was just...
Detail 14. The KGB built a real office because of this film. One of the stranger documented after effects of 3 Days of the Condor involves Soviet intelligence. According to former Soviet intelligence officer Sergei Tretyakov, the fictional clandestine research operation depicted in the film, analysts reading books and publications looking for intelligence patterns, convinced KGB generals that such an operation must actually exist in the CIA. Persuaded by the film's authenticity, they established an equivalent office in Moscow, the Scientific Research Institute of Intelligence Problems. A fictional CIA operation in a Hollywood thriller caused Soviet intelligence to build a real counterpart.
There's nothing from any other intelligence source to support your theory.
Detail 13. Redford wanted the film to be about oil, not drugs. In the source novel, the conspiracy centers on a drug smuggling operation run through a rogue CIA faction. Redford felt this premise was dated and insufficiently political for the moment the film was entering. He pushed for the conspiracy to be rewritten around Middle Eastern oil, a CIA faction planning to control oil fields in the region to gain geopolitical leverage. Redford had been following the 1973 oil crisis and its impact on American foreign policy closely, and believed the oil conspiracy gave the film a real-world dimension that drug smuggling could not match. The rewrite aligned the fictional plot with the most urgent strategic preoccupation of the mid-1970s.
Higgins, New York Center. I'm controlling now, Condor. Where are you?
How come I need a code name and you don't?
Detail 12. Redford and Pollock refuse to use the CIA seal in advertising. The marketing department predictably wanted to exploit the film's intelligence agency context as fully as possible in promotional materials. The obvious move was to incorporate the CIA seal into the advertising, pairing it with the names Robert Redford and Faye Dunaway, and leaning into the post-Watergate cultural moment. Both Redford and Pollock refused. Pollock later described the suggestion as the advertising community doing what advertising people do, and said he and Redford put their feet down firmly against it. The concern was that using the official CIA imagery in a commercial context would cross a line from political commentary into something that felt exploitative of a genuinely serious institutional moment. The final campaign did not use the seal. Detail 11. Sidney Pollock sued a television network over a pan and scan broadcast. In 1991, Danish public television broadcast 3 days of The Condor in a pan and scan version. The film, shot in a widescreen 2.35 to 1 aspect ratio, was cropped to fill a standard television screen, cutting off significant portions of the image. Pollock sued on the grounds that this constituted a mutilation of the original work and violated his rights as an artist to maintain its integrity. The legal concept invoked was droit moral, the moral rights of a creator over their work. The court ultimately ruled in favor of the broadcaster on a technicality, but Pollock's willingness to take the case to court sent a clear message about how seriously he regarded the visual composition of the finished film.
Victim.
And according to a police spokesman, drugs were not involved.
Did he say victim?
Does it seem to have been a robbery?
Detail 10. Redford's character is ambidextrous in an unusual way. Among the quieter character details Redford worked into his portrayal of Joe Turner is something most viewers never consciously register. Throughout the film, Turner performs most physical actions with his left hand. Picking things up, reaching for objects, handling equipment, it is consistently his left hand. But when he writes with his right. The detail was deliberate, designed to suggest something about Turner as a person, an analyst who processes the world in an unusual way, whose habits and instincts do not conform to a standard pattern. Whether audiences consciously noticed the choice, it was built into the performance from the beginning, as part of Redford's thinking about who this particular man is. Detail 9. The Guggenheim Museum was Turner's first hiding place. When Turner escapes the massacre at the CIA front office and needs somewhere to disappear immediately, his first instinct is to walk into the Guggenheim Museum at 1071 Fifth Avenue. The enormous white spiral building, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright and opened in 1959, stands on the Upper East Side overlooking Central Park. Turner moves through it as a man trying to think, trying to blend into tourist crowds, buying himself time to process what just happened. The choice of location, one of New York's most recognizable cultural landmarks, simultaneously public and oddly private in its circular interior, gives that sequence its quality of a man hiding in full view.
Care about a bunch of goddamn books. A book in Dutch. A book out of Venezuela.
Detail 8. The Dave Grusin score won a Grammy. The film's score, composed by Dave Grusin, won the Grammy Award for Best Album of Original Score written for a motion picture or television special in 1977. Grusin brought to Condor a combination of jazz-inflected tension and lyricism that suited both the film's thriller mechanics and its unexpectedly romantic stretches. The main theme, energetic and slightly off balance, captures the feeling of a city that has become dangerous without warning. The Grammy recognition for a thriller score of this kind reflected how well integrated the music was with the film as a whole, doing its job without calling unnecessary attention to itself.
CNA, Mrs. Coleman speaking.
This is Harold Thomas, Mrs. Coleman. Customer service?
Detail 7. Turner uses a real phone company technique to trace Joubert. In the scene where Turner needs to trace a phone number Joubert has called, he contacts the phone company while posing as an employee and asks for a CNA, customer name, and address. This was a real internal service used by phone company employees to look up customer information by number unavailable to the general public. The scene works because Turner's background as a former telephone lineman gives him the knowledge to use it. The film uses the procedure accurately. It was not invented for the screenplay.
You have a transmitter hidden somewhere in your clothes. What's this?
DF, huh? You do read everything, don't you?
This is no goddamn book.
Detail 6. The producer died during filming. The original producer of 3 Days of the Condor was Stanley Schneider. On January 22, 1975, while production was ongoing, Schneider died of a heart attack. Pollack absorbed the production responsibilities on top of his directing duties, effectively running the film from both sides simultaneously for the remainder of the shoot. It is the kind of behind-the-scenes disruption that rarely makes it into a film's public history, but the person credited as director on 3 Days of the Condor was also functioning as its de facto producer for a significant portion of its making.
Absolutely not. We have games. That's all. We play games.
Detail 5. The film inspired Kevin Mitnick to choose his hacker, Alias. Kevin Mitnick, the computer hacker who became one of the most wanted cybercriminals in the United States during the 1980s and 1990s before being arrested, tried, and eventually becoming a cybersecurity consultant, has stated that he chose his hacker nickname, Condor, after watching 3 Days of the Condor. Turner's ability to outthink institutional adversaries using knowledge and lateral thinking rather than physical force, and his working-class intellectual outsider status inside a powerful organization clearly resonated. The nickname Mitnick carried through years of federal pursuit came from a mid-budget 1975 CIA thriller.
It's very well executed.
Which requires planning, communications, tracks. I'm not asking for footprints.
Detail 4. A famous line turned up in 3 other Pollack films. The line Turner delivers to Higgins, questioning whether not getting caught in a lie is the same thing as telling the truth, became the most quoted exchange in the film. Pollack later admitted he used variations of that specific construction in at least 3 other films he directed: Tootsie, 1982, The Firm, 1993, and The Interpreter, 2005. He was drawn to the ethical formulation, the gap between technical truth and genuine honesty, and returned to it across more than 2 decades. Most viewers in those later films would have had no idea they were hearing a reworked version of something first said on a New York street in 1975.
Not you guys.
Detail 3. The film directly inspired Captain America: The Winter Soldier. The Russo brothers, directors of Captain America: The Winter Soldier, 2014, have publicly acknowledged that 3 Days of the Condor was a direct influence on that film's concept, a conspiracy thriller centered on a protagonist who discovers the institution he serves has been compromised from within. The casting of Robert Redford in The Winter Soldier as a senior intelligence official was explicitly intended as a homage to Condor. Redford's presence in the Marvel film, playing a character who turns out to be working against the very organization he represents, was a self-aware callback to the role he had played nearly 4 decades earlier.
Broke down. The generator went.
Detail 2, a Radiohead song contains a sample from the film. The Radiohead track, Fitter Happier, released on the 1997 album OK Computer, contains a sample of dialogue from 3 Days of the Condor. The track, which uses a computerized voice reading a list of lifestyle aspirations, in a flat, effectless tone, incorporates the film's audio in a way that extends its commentary on institutional deception and the gap between what people are told and what is actually true. The use of a 1975 paranoid thriller as source material for a late 1990s art rock meditation on modern alienation is the kind of unexpected cultural connection that never appears in the film's standard biography.
I thought this guy was...
Wait. Was Condor qualified with a handgun?
Detail 1. The film convinced the KGB, and it still holds up. 50 years after its release, 3 Days of the Condor occupies an unusual position. It was a product of its specific historical moment, the post-Watergate years, the Church Committee hearings, the 1973 oil crisis, the general sense that American institutions were operating by rules the public was not permitted to know. Roger Ebert wrote at the time that its scary quality was that it was entirely believable. What no one in 1975 knew was how much of the fictional apparatus the film described was not fictional. The World Trade Center office in the film happened to share a building with an actual CIA outpost. The KGB built a real intelligence research office because a movie convinced them one existed. And the question Turner shouts at Higgins in the street about whether anyone will actually publish his story still does not have a clean answer. That is why the film holds. Not because the conspiracy was invented, but because the questions it raises were real ones, and they have not gone away. 30 details inside one of the most tightly wound thrillers the 1970s produced. If you found something worth knowing, hit the like button and subscribe. There is plenty more where this came from.